Welcome to the Beyond the Veil Summit, a free online event where you'll explore the mysteries surrounding near-death experiences, mediumship, and the science of the afterlife. Share this event with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at The Shift Network. And now your host, Lisa Bonis.
Welcome to this session of the Beyond the Veil Summit with my guest, Elizabeth Ann Hill. Our topic today is about twin sisters connecting from opposite sides of the veil to share important information with the world. Elizabeth Ann Hill's spiritual journey began in 2002 with the death of her identical twin sister, Catherine Mary Hill, who then assisted Elizabeth from across the veil in writing her first book, Twin Souls, A Message of Hope for the New Millennium. Then, in 2008, Elizabeth learned through a trance channel that she was to begin a journey around the world with no safety net to transmute limiting belief systems and then share the wisdom she gained. And now, in 2020, with all that's occurring on the world stage, it is time. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And you and I have known one another for many years, and your story is so rich and robust that I hope we can fit in as much of it as we can in the limited time we have today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's begin with what happened in 2002 with the death of your twin sister, Catherine. Go ahead and tell us that story.
Well, it was a day that started off like any other day, and I remember it was October 25th of 2002. And I was at work. I worked as a 911 police dispatcher, and as I was preparing my desk and everything, I got a call to go to the chief's office. I thought, dear God, why am I going to the chief's office? Did I kill somebody? Didn't do something right or whatever? It was really strange. And anyway, I went and then I saw this Border Patrol. My sister was a United States Border Patrol agent. And I saw these Border Patrol brass, the chief, coming in. And they sat down and they told me the news that my twin sister, Catherine Mary Hill, was killed in an on-duty vehicle accident. And that's where it all began. Because right before she had passed away, she had been going through a spiritual awakening. She had been reading books and so after that, I started to question, what is this life about? And, it was quite shocking, obviously, to lose a twin sister. But as you know, the story continues from there.
Right. Now, I know that you first of all, you had completely different philosophical and political views. You were on completely different sides of the coin, but shortly after her death, you began to receive messages. Psychics would stop you in the store and say, I haven't met people that you didn't even know. So Catherine was really pretty powerful in delivering messages to you. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that and about the necklace you're wearing?
Yes. Well, my sister, after she passed, 3 days afterwards, I was falling on my knees and sobbing because I was getting ready to plan her very public funeral. As a United States Border Patrol agent, she would receive an honor guard funeral with the helicopters and the riderless horse and the 21 gun salute. And, I just couldn't imagine the enormity of what I was about to do. And I just got this lightning bolt communication at that moment that said, your sister Kathy is fine. And remember what she was doing and reading before she died. And that's just, my tears stopped. And from that moment on, it was a ride because it just became so clear almost immediately that she was really still with me. And, I hadn't really knew much about psychic phenomenon at that point, but she was coming to me in dream states. And at first I was kind of afraid to go to a medium, but then I was compelled to go to see a medium, and they were bringing through messages from her saying that this was the pact that we had made, that she would go and I would stay, and that I needed to, spend time in meditation and connect with her. And she came to me, like I said, in dream states and also through the mediums in meditative states. And Then also I was connecting with other beings of higher consciousness. All this stuff was going on in my sleep, all these blue lights. And, I'm hearing all these names like Jesus and Paramahansa Yogananda and masters. And it was really wild. And so over time, I began to read her books that she had left behind. And I was also guided to many new books, which told me about this grand spiritual awakening that's happening across the planet. And so it just really changed the whole focus of my life and the direction of my life.
Right. And the blue butterflies.
Oh, sorry. Yes. And so one of the things that the first medium I went to said was that when your sister's around you, she will show you blue wings, like angel wings, but mostly like blue butterfly wings. And immediately the blue butterflies were everywhere. And her friend, Marcy, who had traveled with my sister all over the world, had gone to a place in Brazil, this giant waterfall. There was thousands of blue butterflies. And she just kept saying, no hay palabras, which in Spanish means there are no words to describe the beauty of these butterflies. And so she came to Marcy, her friend Marcy, when she was out walking, and made it clear to her the reason why she had chosen these blue butterflies as her symbol is she wanted us to know that there was no words to describe the beauty of where she was, and that she, so ever since then, the blue butterfly has been the symbol, and everywhere I go, there's blue butterflies. I mean, everybody who follows me is like, wow, I can't believe it. And the other day there was a blue butterfly scarf hanging on a fence, and they're just everywhere. And she makes her presence quite well known to me. And she came to me in dreams also and said, it's not scary at all, meaning death, and that she was in her favorite place and she was with me as well. And so yes, that's the infamous blue butterfly.
Right. And then I know that eventually you didn't even need to connect with mediums to communicate, that Kathy came through to you all the time once you'd passed that hump. So what do you think is the most important thing that you learned about mediumship in the afterlife from your experience with all of this?
Well, I think it's a very normal, common thing. And I think everybody connects. And it just felt very natural, like, oh, I already knew how to do this. And it does take oftentimes to quiet yourself, and quieting, and it doesn't have to be like the perfect meditation and lotus position or anything, but out walking in nature, or just sitting and breathing, or having a cup of tea and quieting the mind, and also raising the energy, being in a high, peaceful state, then it makes it very easy for your loved ones and other beings, spirit guides or whatever, to communicate with you. So it's actually a very natural thing, and everybody does it. There's different ways in which it would come in. I mean, I have all the different, I can feel it, I can see it in my mind's eye, I can hear, I receive ideas, and it just became more and more the way that I lived my life was through these connection with my sister, and through what I call, my higher self and soul and many beings. And so the most important thing is just that everyone connects, and it can be different for different people, but if you can set aside the grief and the fear and all the emotions, of course you have to go through those, but at some point, it's very clearly that they're trying to communicate with you, and they're trying to let you know that they're okay, and they'll do anything they can. And so just to quiet down, and to even ask them, can you give me a sign? Let's come up with a sign. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun and not ultra serious. So, yeah.
Right. And I think one of my favorite things from way back then is you would receive a lot of numbers. I know a lot of people see 1111 or 444 or whatever. So they see sequences of numbers. And Twin Souls, your book ended up having exactly, without trying to do this, exactly 444 pages. So that was sort of an extra fun tidbit from Kathy.
Yes, it was. And you were instrumental in helping me publish that book. And you said to me, did you see the last page number? And I said, oh, and I looked and it was exactly 444 pages. And I had a lot of interactions with the number 444, which is generally known to be like angelic presence. And I think my sister uses 444 also to kind of like, hey, I'm here, and your guides and your, those who are with you in spirit. And so, yes, for a lot of synchronicities, and my whole journey has been about synchronicities, numbers and symbols, and a lot of different ways that those who have crossed over can connect with you.
Right. And then if we fast forward a couple of years, in 2008, you met Glenna Dietrich, who was a trans-channel medium, and created the recordings of The Interview with the Universe. So tell us a little bit about your work with Glenna.
Yeah, it was after I had completed, publishing Twin Souls, and I really didn't know what direction I was going to take after that. And then I started doing my own podcast, kind of like the Shift Network, and interviewing authors. And then, so through a series of synchronistic events with another host of a show, I was connected up with Glenna Dietrich. And the funny thing was that I had interviewed on my show Robert Schwartz, who wrote a book called Your Soul's Plan, and now he has Your Soul's Gift. Phenomenal books. And it's about the plan that your soul makes before you come into your physical form. And Glenna was one of the mediums in that he used 4 mediums to get the pre-birth planning of he did maybe like 10 case studies, and he used Glenna and several other mediums to get the information. So I had interviewed him on my show, and then not through him, but through somebody else, I was asked to have a reading with her. Because this guy was promoting mediums and psychics, and he wanted to know, was she the real thing? And she definitely was the real thing. And she came in and we had a session together, and just amazing. That's how it all started.
Right. And then how did you two come up with the idea to actually record the interview?
Well, we did the session, and as part of the session, it was like a long kind of, she used astrology and Akashic records, and she used every numerology and her own psychic impulses. And then at the end of this long session, she said, okay, now we're going to do the channeling, and it's not going to be me. Some guides are going to come through and speak to you. So she's like Edgar Cayce, and I always compared her to Edgar Cayce. She was so humble. She's like, no, but really, she would go into like a state of where she was like semi-asleep. And then these guides came through and spoke to me, and I was really kind of stunned. And they said, would you like to ask questions? And I didn't, oh my God, ask questions. And so I asked a few, and then that was the end of it. And I just could not stop thinking about this, because I love questions. I have so many questions, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and that I would like to ask a lot more questions. And so I contacted her finally and said, can we do that channeling part again? And she said, well, she normally didn't do that because it took a lot of energy out of her. But she said, I'm really being compelled to say yes. So yes, let's do it again. And so then I started writing out my questions. I was, sitting there. I lived in Southern California, and I was on the beach writing out my questions. And as I was doing that, I got this lightning bolt communication with a book title, An Interview with the Universe. I thought, oh, that's so amazing, because I had my show, and I thought I always wanted to have some big, well-known guest. It's like, well, what's bigger than the universe, right? So we were through Glenna, I was going to interview the universe. And so that's how it began.
Right. So you actually flew to Minnesota to meet with Glenna. Now, I love the story about what happened with the weather right before you began the interview. Go ahead and tell that one.
Yes. Well, what happened was I was going to write out the questions, and she wasn't going to know what the questions were. And I was asking everybody, what questions were you asking? No one could come up with any questions, and I came up with 250. So that tells you. And so I got on the plane, went to Minneapolis where she was, and her son, Corey, was a musician. So his friend had an in-home recording studio. And so we set it up where she would be laying down in the bedroom and she was mic'd, and I would be out in the hall and they would be in another room. So it was kind of like an in-home studio setup. And so, but right the day before that we all came together, there was an F4 tornado that went right through that town. And we were told later by the guides that they had facilitated that because they needed to clear the energy so that this group of beings could come in and actually be there with us physically. And one pane of glass was not broken between, the studio and the outer world. And all these other homes were devastated except for the one that we were going to record. It had one pane of glass left and we were able to do it. And Glenna got the message that, this is how this project would be. Like there might be a lot of chaos, but nothing could touch it. And so that was the way that these guides that we were working with were cleared the energy so that they could come in.
Right. And then even with all of that, I recall that Glenna's voice on the recordings, there was a lot of static on the line because it was so high energy, the frequency of what she was delivering. No matter what this professional sound producer did, he could not balance out that sound.
Yes, there was a lot of static and things going on, and we tried, as you know, to edit it out. But when we asked, and because we did a lot of channelings other than just the ones that we were going to present to the public, and we asked, and they said, "Well, we just want you to know that we were there, with you." And so that cannot be edited out because it's just our presence. So that was pretty fantastic.
Right. So we'll talk about the interview in a minute and then your journey. But at this point, what was the most important thing that you learned about communicating across the veil from your time with Glenna?
Well, again, it's a thing that's very normal and common. Some people come in with really great abilities. It's just like someone who can play the piano, or they have some type of special gift. And so, but everybody connects across the veil, because what is the veil? It's just a thin layer of, we take on kind of like this forgetfulness. We forget the grandeur that we are, the beings that we are, these, powerful, infinite beings. And we take on a personality and we come into physicality, or we appear to. And so there's really not anything between us and the infinite and the spirit world and everything. It's just like a temporary construct or whatever. And so all you have to do is raise your vibration, raise your energy, and become still, and you will start realizing that you are receiving guidance, whether it be kind of like you're hearing something, or an idea will come, or a person will appear. So it's the most important thing is just that you can do it, that anybody can do it, and that there's not really any separation between yourself, because you are spirit. The biggest part of you is spirit. I mean, we're just temporarily taking on human form to have this adventure and to have this learning and growth, but we are spirit. And so they're just like our brothers and sisters. We communicate.
Right. So I think is a good time to ask this question. In your view, how do you define the veil?
Well, like I say, it's just a temporary shield that causes you to forget who you really are. We are a soul. We are this infinite being, which the guide said is part of another infinite. It just goes on infinity. So powerful. We are one with all that is. But when we take on human form, we take on a personality, and that veil is just like a little coloring. It just kind of blocks us from remembering this, because otherwise there wouldn't be growth opportunities, and there wouldn't be the challenges that we wanted to take on, and the learning. So it has to be that it's just kind of like a temporary shield that keeps us from remembering the fullness of who we are, only for the purposes of learning and growth and expansion. And it's a grand adventure, to become human. And so that's how I would define it.
Okay. So now, as a result of some of the information you received through Glenna's guides and the interview itself, you began this amazing journey that's taken you around the world with no visible means of support. And I know when this first started, it was pretty scary. So start us at the beginning, and then we'll move into where you are now so many years later.
Well, the guides, during our channelings, we had, our own private personal channelings that we had, that I had, and then the one that we made available to the public. And during those channelings, they kept alluding that there was going to be this journey. And they said to me that as my part, because there's a grand awakening happening all across the planet, and everyone has a part to play, but as my part, I would take on this. They said I would face the deepest fears of all of humanity, because I wanted to use the energy of this shift coming in to transmute these fears for myself, and because we're all interconnected for everybody. And so I thought, well, my God, what am I going to do? And it just turned out that, and I had visions all my life that I was going to do something very different, and that I was going to travel. And so it turned out that, all the money kind of started going away from me. No matter what I tried to do, I had quit my job because I had received guidance to quit my job. And I thought, well, I'll go and get my master's degree or something. But then it just wouldn't stick. And so I'd fill out applications. I became a little bit panicked, and I'd fill out applications online and be typing for an hour, and then print it, and it would print out blank. There was nothing there. And so it became very clear that, no, there's something else for you that you're going to do. And so it kind of just unfolded into this thing where I would be down to nothing and have no money, no nothing. And then something would show up, a person, some money out of the blue, an idea, an opportunity. And so just this started to happen while I was living in San Diego. And then I was given an opportunity to go to this place in Tennessee, which the name of this place was Elizabethton, Tennessee. So of course that was, made me laugh, Elizabethton. So that's where it all began. Nothing I did would stick as far as money or jobs. And so I just went off to this place in Tennessee, and that's where it started. Again and again, I would be no means of support. No job would stick, no anything. And I was also out in the country, didn't have anything. And then a neighbor would knock on the door with this big basket of food, or some idea would come and I'd get money. And it just kept on and on and on and on, showing me again and again that you are supplied, your needs and your desires and everything that you need and want does not come from something in the world. It can come through those things, like through a job or a government or an inheritance, but it is not from that. That is a very, very, very important point that we, at this moment especially, we need to understand that each person is guided. And this went on, as you know, for years and years and years, where I began to travel, and I was in the unknown. I didn't know where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat, where the money was going to come from. And for the past 12 years, I've been doing that, and still to this day. And what I need always comes in. And so that's a pretty strong testimony that we have safety net with us. We are not walking this journey alone.
Right. Now, I want to reiterate here, because we've only got a small amount of time, and this is still going on for many, many years. And because we know each other, I know you face some truly scary times where anybody else, me included, would just freak out and cry and wonder what on earth is happening? Why me? And have all of these thoughts. And yet you really weren't like you said, every time that you would try to do something else, it just wouldn't work. No matter how much effort you put in, you were sort of, this is what's happening, and you just sort of have to roll with it. So you sort of learn to trust. Is that?
I had to trust. Yes, I had to trust. And, they had said to me, you're going to face the deepest fears of all of humanity. So that pretty much covered it. I mean, I faced issues with authority, like police and immigration. And I faced issues, of course, with not having money. And a big part of it was like a misuse of power, like being in a situation where someone was misusing their power. And then I was guided, now you speak up about this. Well, in this world, what brings power, right? Money, possessions. When you have a movie star or somebody, they say, what is their net worth? That means how much money do they have? What is their possessions? And I didn't have anything to back me up. And yet I'm being called upon to speak up in the name of this new energy that this is not going to sustain anymore. And so I had to deal with not having money, being in places where nobody spoke English. I had to be in places where I was guided, okay, now you need to speak up about what you see happening here. And 9 times out of 10, I was thrown out of that place. I didn't have money. I mean, but the thing about it is that the overriding factor was that miracle after miracle after miracle happened. It kept me what I needed. And also very, very loving people. I had if you look at my pictures, every single people, you're always in some beautiful place. And you're always with loving people. So I did have a lot of loving people as well, but it was just a very mix of the spectrum from dark to light. And I really had it all. So yeah, I had to trust. There was no choice.
Right. And so how many countries have you traveled? It's like 22 different countries?
20. I've been invited to Greece, so it might be 21. I don't know if I'm going to go. It's like, I never know till the last minute if something's going to happen, but
Right, right. And you mentioned that you were often in places where English was not the primary language and you didn't speak any of their language. And some of these countries had rather totalitarian government systems. So it's not like you were just sort of backpacking across Europe, tra-la-la. You really ended up in some challenging places. What is, I think, the most challenging situation that you found yourself in?
Oh, the top 2 would be that I had to face a Chinese court because I overstayed my visa because I was guided to help this Kenyan woman who was having a very difficult time. And I followed that guidance because I trust my guidance that strongly. And I had to go to court. And then people were saying, oh, it's going to be a jail sentence and all this. And my inner voice was saying, nope, we chose love. It's not going to be any of that. But I had to go stand in front of a court and explain why I overstayed my visa by 5 months. The other one was in Myanmar, which is a military dictatorship. And there again, overstaying my visa. My sister was a border patrol agent. So it's really ironic that I kept being guided into these situations. And I had to come up with like over $1,000 to leave this country because I had to like pay kind of like this bribe. You remember my PayPal card was expired and I couldn't receive Western Union either because my visa was expired and I couldn't get money and it was crazy. But then I ended up walking right on through it and nothing happened. And I left and finally, after we jumped through 1,000 hoops. So.
Right. And let's also mention that you weren't deliberately flaunting the visa. You were just sort of blocked from leaving no matter what you knew the visa was expiring. You knew you had to somehow get out of town. But again, I tried.
I tried. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I tried to leave. I tried to follow the rules, but my God, I was not, I couldn't. If you don't have money, you can't get on a plane. Because one of the biggest fears that people have is about authority. And, I've heard someone say, God didn't draw all these lines on the planet. They don't really exist. And this whole thing about, well, this is my country and this is not your country and you can't be here. It's pretty much actually an illusion. And so I was like wanting to see beyond these structures that are in place that are actually not even real. It's just kind of part of the human dream. But so authority is a big issue with people. That's one of the deepest fears, is that you're going to have something taken from you or you're going to be something. So yeah, in my human self, I would have rather just got on the plane and left. But it wouldn't happen. And but every time this happened where I faced this beast thing, nothing happened. Nothing would ever touch me. And it just showed me that these fears are just fears. The fears are playing out for us right now in the world. And if you believe in them really strongly and you focus on them, the bigger they get, because we live in that type of energy. We live in a realm of consciousness and energy. And so I just trusted, and I walked through every single one of these things. Nothing ever touched me, and I was fine. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Right. And now it's just sort of a matter of fact, right now you're in England and just sort of waiting to see what happens next. So in all of this time, if you can distill it down to one thing, what's the most important thing that you've learned about truly trusting the universe?
Well, I would say that I am the universe. You see, we have this belief in separation, that there's this world and there's all these separate objects. This is the dream. This is the game that we take on. But actually, there's just the one infinite source. Some people call it God, the Tao, universe, and divine matrix, whatever you want to name, Allah. It's that one thing that gives everything life. That is what we are. We are only temporarily human and temporary, like I'm playing Elizabeth and you're playing Lisa. That's temporary. So I know through my direct connection with my source, which is at the very core of my being, that I am that, as Abraham Hicks would say, the energy that creates worlds. I am that infinity. So that's power. And so if you want to be in your power, you have to be present and you have to be knowing who and what you are at the core of your being, despite the fact that it looks so real, this crazy, ride that we're on. But I just know that I am that, which we call the universe.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. Now, I know that you're working on another book, and that's still absolutely a work in progress. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the most important messages that you want to share about what you've learned.
Well, we're going through a time which I was told about back in 2008 by these guides. They had said to me, "You are going to be ready for what's going to happen in the world." And at the time, I didn't know, well, what the heck's going to happen? Well, I think we can clearly see what has happened. And so I know people are lamenting this, and it's not. It's a very important moment, because the systems of the world are built in separation. Every single one of them is built in this idea that there's a finite world out there of lack and fear, and there's not enough. And this is not the truth. It's just a human perception. And so there's an awakening happening where all of that has to be transmuted. Otherwise, we cannot move forward. So this time frame that's happening, a lot of people are going through situations that feel quite scary, and their money going away from them, their home or whatever. Not everybody. There's some people who will not have any change, but there are many. And I want to say to those people, this is not a mistake, because you see, there had to be a group of people whose sole agreement was, I will be the one to step back and have less money and have sometimes no money, so that I can know the truth about who and what I am, and who and what actually supplies, brings me what I need and want. Because we cannot move into higher consciousness, which is what is happening with this limiting belief systems, especially about money. So what I would like to say is, if you're going through a very challenging time, each and every one of us is guided. If the job goes away, if the home goes away, if the car goes away, and you've done everything, I mean, you've followed ideas and you followed guidance, and it still goes away, then let it go and follow the internal guidance. Somebody will step forward. And I encourage people who really are, maybe they're not having a lot of change and they have more than what they need, to help these people, because it's quite terrifying. And also there's shame, because they think that they have done something wrong. And because in this world, everything is about money. But the guide said, my role was to dispel these myths about money and about where power comes from. There's only one power, and it is not money. And you are that power. So if you sit every day and ask the question, who am I? What am I really? And then just hold that feeling of beingness you will be guided. Everybody is guided through this challenging times. So I would encourage you to take your focus away from what's going on and saying how terrible it is, because that's just adding to the energy, and go inward with yourself and really contemplate who and what you are. And then you will see that the miraculous things will show up for you.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I know from watching what you've gone through that it really can be difficult to stand in your truth and really walk this path when people that you know and love, or even strangers, are calling you names and saying that you're lazy and get a job and why don't you do it this way, etc. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So as you're talking about the people who are now beginning this process that you've been going through for so many years, how would you suggest they, I guess, really relax into the messages that they're receiving and honor what they feel is truth and move forward in spite of all this from the outside world?
Well, I mean, I'm always shocked at the number of people who go on to Facebook and things like this and spend their time all day long talking about how terrible everything is. And do you not understand that we live in a realm of consciousness and a realm of vibration? The outer world is only an outpicturing of the inner world. So the number one thing is stop doing that and pull your energy in to your inner self and focus on joy, focus on peace, walk in nature, play with your pets, play with your kids, do the things that bring you joy. And the more you sit in that contemplative state where you say, who am I? What is this looking through my eyes? And what is this body? And who am I? And ask these questions. I think this is why we've had lockdown and all this stuff, because it's forcing people to get off the rat wheel and look inward and ask the question, who am I really? And because we are such powerful beings and we have forgotten. So if you can do that, the more you do that, you start seeing the world through different eyes, and these people who are saying these things to you will fall away because you are at a different energy. You got to remember, it's all about the vibration, the frequency that you hold. And as it's been said, one being like a Jesus or a Buddha holding this powerful unconditional love and knowing what he or she actually is overrides millions who are at a denser vibration and maybe more hypnotized, forgot who they were. So yeah, you have to ignore what other people are saying, and you have to only listen to your inner feeling. And the more you do it, the stronger it will get. So you will know exactly what to do and what not to do. It's very, very clear.
Right. Now, when you found yourself in situations where you know something is about to change, you know that because you can feel it. Okay, something's brewing. I'm going to be going on to somewhere else now. I have no idea where. And the answers just don't seem to come. And you end up stuck for days, sometimes weeks, going, I don't know what's going to happen. How do you find peace and patience and not feel fear about where's my next message coming from?
Well, I've had a lot of practice. You just need to practice connecting with your inner self. But, the more you are, all I can say is the same answer over and over again. The more connected you are inwardly and the less focus you have outwardly, the more power you feel inside. And so it's said in the Tao Te Ching that when you no longer fear or believe in an outer authority, a much greater inner authority appears. So I'm always asking, trying to get people to turn around and focus inward. If you don't have answers, then you wait. Don't make any gigantic leaps, because there are moments to take action and there are moments to be still. And you just have to find your inner, I don't know how else to say. I go out on a walk, I do yoga. Anytime I can get my feet in the grass or the sea or something to ground myself, ground yourself. Take your focus away from social media, away from what other people are saying. You will start to feel this presence that's so powerful that you can just there might be fear, but it's okay because you will know that this is just a moment not to do anything. I mean, I'm in England. I've been here a year and 3 months. I wasn't, I'm supposed to be gone in December. But the thing is that I tried twice to leave. It didn't happen. I don't know what's happening next. I'm just, I don't know. And so I'm in that situation right now, but I'm very calm because I know the outer world is just kind of it's not really as it appears to be. And I am the one. My soul, my being is powerful. And I've just learned that through connecting over and over again. So.
Right. Now, I know one of the reasons that you're still in England is because of COVID and the lockdown and travel and all that type of thing. So before we wrap this up, what are your thoughts on this whole pandemic thing? It's a global situation.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to leave twice and they stopped me from getting on a plane. So it's not like I tried to leave. But well, I mean, to me, the guide's saying, you're going to be ready for what's going to be happening in the world. I think this is part of the happening. It's like, and I have it on very good authority from different sources and that I trust and through my own inner connection that this is not going to go back. We're not going to go back into the old way. I'm not saying that to be scary. This is a fantastic thing. But the pandemic is what has taken all these structures down. These are structures that were created in separation. The financial system, the guide said, it's not equal. It's not loving. It's not inclusive of all. So something has to make a change. Obviously, this virus has made a massive change, and it also gave the earth a time to breathe. And so a lot of people there, what they thought was secure, gone away. And so that's why the moment for me to come forward is now, because I think it's going to continue in this vein. It's not going to go backwards. And this is a good thing, because if you allow yourself to be guided, which everybody is, you will be fine. And not only that, but you'll be much more free. So this is setting us free. This and who knows whatever else, the world, the guide said, if the humanity does not make these changes that need to be made, the human race will not survive long term. Because you have forgotten so much, that you're in separation so much that you're not in truth. And as a collective, humanity, this is a level that we don't see, but as a collective, we've made the agreement, we are going to awaken. So a lot of people are transitioning because they're not ready to either make that awakening, or they have another part to play. So a lot of people are transitioning, and no one ever passes away without their soul agreement. So this is another thing about this. I try to tell people why. I mean, I understand being afraid, but it's like your soul, between you and your soul on a level you do not see, you make the choice. Okay, I'm going to get COVID. I'm not going to get COVID. I'm going to pass. I'm not going to pass. So you really don't have to spend so much time in fear about it, because all decisions that happen are never against your will. So if you're going to have it as an experience, it's just one of many experiences in this life. Wouldn't call it bad. Would call it, well, this is what my soul and myself as a human chose. So that's partly what I have to say about it.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. Now, we're almost out of time, so before we go any further, I want to make sure that I mention your website. That is ElizabethAnnHill.com, and that's Ann with an E, ElizabethAnnHill.com. And this is where people can not only listen to the entire interview with the universe, there's 3 sessions, they can also download a free copy of your book, Twin Souls, and they can also follow along with your journey. Before we wrap it up, first I want to thank you for being with us today. I always love connecting with you. Before we go, is there anything that we've left out or anything that's coming to mind that you want to make sure that we talk about before we go?
Yeah, I mean, just my whole purpose and my sister's purpose and Glenna's purpose was about this transformation. I just want to reiterate that the guide said the biggest problem on the planet right now is fear. It's not global warming. It's not these things. I mean, those things are, yes, but the fear is causing absolute chaos. It's causing fast moving storms. And so the problem is fear. Fear is a much more insidious thing than a virus. I mean, the fear. So I'm asking everyone, please do your inner work, calm down, and be at peace, because the outer world reflects the inner world. It does so individually and collectively. I know you think that there's this, or many people think there's a world out there and these bad things are happening. But what is really happening is that our fears, our deepest fears, are playing out so that we can look at them and say, okay, we don't want these things anymore, and we can transmute them. But they're not really going to affect you if you are focused inwards and away from fear and in peace. And this is absolutely vital. Without taking time to ask the question, who am I? The core of my being, who am I? And what is this world that I'm seeing? And start to learn about quantum physics and how all possibilities exist simultaneously. We don't live in a finite world where there's not enough. This is just a dream illusion. And this is what the awakening is. All possibilities exist. And wherever you put your focus, this is quantum physics. It's not philosophy or spirituality. It's going to come into form into your world, because each one of us has our own universe that we're playing in. We just made an agreement to intersect our universes, and wherever you're at frequency wise is what you're going to draw into your world. So you have the power, and each one of us has the power, and you have the control as to where you put your focus. Don't worry about the outer world. Each individual person is so powerful that if they just make the change inside themselves and calm the fear down and stop ranting and raving about all the terrible things, it's going to make a huge difference individually and collectively. And you will be guided every step.
All right. Well, straight from London, England, Elizabeth Ann Hill with the message of keep calm and carry on. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. So yes, thank you again, Elizabeth Ann Hill. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation in the Beyond the Veil Summit.
Thank you for joining us for the Beyond the Veil Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit beyondtheveilsummit.com. To join our global community of people awakening to their divine humanity and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for gathering with us and for sharing this healing path with your friends and family.